Welcome to Education 60201A, Developmental Psychology. I'm Lawrence Miller. I'm the instructor in the course, and today we're going to have our first session. This is the only video podcast. The other podcasts are all recorded audio. I should warn you also that there seem to be some technical problems that we're having, and I'm warning you of that because it's possible that the recording may break in the middle, in which case you will look for part 1, part 2, and part 3, or however many parts there have to be. I'm going to ask you also, please, to make sure you have downloaded the PowerPoint. It's nice to look at me, I guess, but you probably again are looking at the PowerPoint and looking at the notes you want to take for today's session. So if you have not yet downloaded or you haven't opened it, please stop the video at this point and download it now. I assume everyone now has the PowerPoint and that you're looking at slide 1, which has a picture of Jean Piaget, who was the most influential developmental psychologist. And a lot of today's session is going to be about Piaget. I want to start, though, talking about the relevance of developmental psychology to education, because I assume most of you are taking this course because of your interest in education. And I want to go to slide 2, please, which lists some ideas that people in the field of education sometimes believe, and developmental psychologists don't believe it. We're actually pretty sure that they're all wrong. First is the idea of learning as transferring knowledge. And this idea is ubiquitous. If you look at curriculum guideline documents that all American states have and are required to have, and most other educational organizations have, they talk about knowledge which teachers are supposed to have and that they're supposed to transfer to their students. The problem is that that's not how learning really works. Students don't learn by somehow having knowledge transferred to their head as if they were in some kind of science fiction movie and there were hats on their heads and on the teachers, and somehow the teacher's knowledge magically got onto their heads. The way people really learn is much more like making it themselves, and the teacher is somehow a person who can help them to make it themselves. Second idea is that you teach by telling what you know. And again, that's not what you do. I guess you could do that. You could teach by telling what you know. I guess I'm sort of doing that right now, embarrassingly. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work very often because people hear what they expect to hear, and to some extent what they want to hear when you're talking. And so you can tell all you like, but that's not what people are going to hear. They're going to figure it out for themselves, and so you're going to be more effective as a teacher the better you understand them and the better that you know what they're going to be thinking, and so you want to say something that is somehow going to be helpful to them given what they're already thinking to come up with something better on their own. That's the second idea. Third idea that is widely believed and emphatically is not correct is the idea that empiricism is correct. And empiricism is a theory of knowledge which underlies a lot of our educational practices. It was developed about 350 years ago by an English philosopher named John Locke. And Locke believed that knowledge comes from experience. And a lot of people see empiricism as the foundation of all science because scientific knowledge is supposed to come from experience, isn't it? And as I said, empiricism is not right. In fact, it can be harmful. John Locke had an idea that the mind of a child is like a blank slate, what he called, using the Latin phrase, a tabula rasa. That's Latin for blank slate. And he thought that what teachers do is they write on that blank slate. But as Piaget is very famous for demonstrating over and over again, a child's mind is not like a blank slate. Children always, even when they are minutes old, have some ideas in their mind, and they learn by assimilating what's happening around them in some way to these existing ideas, and somehow interpreting reality in terms of their existing ideas. And the other way is by accommodating, by somehow changing their thought processes in response to what Piaget called the resistance of the world, when the world just doesn't seem to fit what they were thinking the first time. You do an experiment and the results aren't what you were expecting them to be. So that is the idea of the ideas of assimilation and accommodation. These are ideas I personally feel strongly about. I actually wrote a book about those two ideas, and they are core ideas in developmental psychology. I mentioned that some people think that empiricism is a foundation for all of science, but people who are scientists, who understand science well, know that's not really how science works. That scientists are always guided by theories and hypotheses, and what they're doing is they are using experience to assimilate and accommodate, to either expand what they already know to fit new circumstances, or occasionally, and not that often, to change their ideas when the world just doesn't seem to fit. I'm going to go on to slide 3 right now to talk about some distinctions that are important in understanding learning. First is the distinction between active learning and passive learning. And empiricism is sometimes characterized as seeing learning as a passive process, whereas developmentalists see learning as a process in which kids are always figuring out the world around them, which in some sense is a more active process. And this kind of distinction has important implications in education, because it means that there's other things that you can do when you teach besides say things and hope that the kids are going to put those things into their mind somehow. To give one example, there's a wonderful method of teaching writing to small kids called process writing, and it works marvelously. You typically start around the age of 4, when kids know a few letters of the alphabet, they don't know how to spell any words. You give them a piece of paper and you ask them to write something. And amazingly, kids who don't know how to write can do this without any problem. They don't use standard spellings. They, in fact, don't use a lot of spellings. They sometimes write a few letters on the page. They sometimes draw like pictures. They don't go from top to bottom or left to right. They don't use punctuation, but they write something. At the end of the session, you ask them to read it to you, and you do this day after day after day after day for 3 or 4 years. And by the time they're about 8, then they are using standard spellings rather than the invented spellings they used when they were younger. They don't draw pictures. They write from left to right and top to bottom. They write with standard punctuation and capitalization, and they actually write quite well. They generally write better than kids who are taught writing in other methods. They enjoy writing more. They are more aggressive in editing their writing, which most writing experts argue is the most important skill for becoming a good writer. So they become active learners, and that's one important distinction. I want to go to slide 4 now. Now here's another distinction. It has to do with the role of the teacher. This distinction was proposed by Alison Cook, who was a specialist in adult learning, and between the stage on the stage and guide on the side. The old idea of the teacher as being the grand lecturer who sits in front of the audience and everybody listens to. And King says no. A more effective teacher is someone who's a guide on the side, who makes helpful suggestions once in a while, but recognizes that kids do the learning pretty much for themselves. The idea is that when somebody is learning, the star is the kid. The star is not the parent or the teacher. You guys, we are supporting cast. Right now, I hope you guys are learning. My job right now is to be the supporting cast. So you guys are the stars. I'm not the star. I'm just the guy on YouTube. So those are some problems with empiricism and some alternative ways of thinking, but they're just small ideas. Is there any large alternative to empiricism? And the idea is yes. Look at slide 5, please. And it presents the idea, which is called constructivism. And this idea is perhaps the most important idea proposed by Piaget, who I'm going to be talking about today. And it imagines learning as a process of building ideas. You have to build them out of something, and there has to be some tools that you use for building them. And Piaget has some things to say about that. Certainly there's much more that we're going to understand, but we do understand a few things. And we're going to talk about that. But first I want to tell you something about Piaget. So look at slide 6. It shows a picture of Piaget when he was in the 70s. With a silly grin on his face and wearing a beret as he usually did. He wasn't smoking his pipe, which is something he also did most of the time. And he's not riding a bicycle, which is also something he did. He used to ride around Geneva on his bicycle. Here's some biography of Piaget. He was born in 1896 in the Swiss town of Neuchâtel. He was considered to be a child prodigy, and he quickly became interested in science. According to his autobiography, between the ages of 7 and 10, he was interested in mechanics, birds, fossils, and seashells. In other words, things that you can see and touch. And as he said in his later work, young children before the age of about 11 or 12 mostly learn by learning about particular things. He called those concrete operations, and it's certainly for Piaget himself. What isn't typical is at the age of 10 he published his first scientific article. It was called The Albino Sparrow, and it dealt with an observation that he made. I guess a lot of kids probably saw albino sparrows before Piaget did, but he was the first one to realize that it was scientifically significant, and he published that. He published a series of articles actually as a teenager about pond snails, while at the same time reading every philosophical work he could get his hands on. He had an uncle who was a theologian and a philosopher. It was during this stage of his life he decided to devote the rest of his life to the biological explanation of knowledge, which again is kind of a brilliant idea for anybody to think of, especially a teenager. Piaget's idea was that the great philosophers of history, going back to Plato and Aristotle, misunderstood the nature of knowledge. And if you really want to understand what people know and where knowledge comes from, you have to look at it in terms of human biology. And he actually studied psychology, not because he cared much about psychology, but as a tool to answer his question about the biological explanation of knowledge. As it happens, he got kind of interested in psychology and spent about 25 years doing psychology before he finally got back to writing about the nature of knowledge. But he eventually did, and he produced an important book called The Introduction to Genetic Epistemology. I recommend it to people who are seriously interested in studying something about the nature of knowledge, with the warning that it's extremely difficult. It's 3 volumes in there, heavy, thick volumes, compounded like that in spite of him being brilliant in many ways, Piaget is not a gifted writer. So it's tough work reading it. It's worth it. I read it, and I'm glad I read it. I spent After he finished high school, he got a graduate degree at the University of Geneva. During this time, he became interested in psychoanalysis. He underwent psychoanalysis with a famous psychoanalyst whose name was Sabina Spielrein. Spielrein became a psychoanalyst post-dissertation of no one less than Carl Jung, but as often happened with young women who were patients of Jung, Jung tried to seduce her, and she was understandably outraged. She traveled from Zurich to Vienna, where she told Freud what was happening. At this point, Freud was feuding with Jung and brought in Spielrein into the circle. She eventually published a number of important papers, but most significantly of all, she became enamored with Jean Piaget. Piaget, after this, moved to Paris for a few years, where he worked in the laboratory of Théophile Simon, who worked with Alfred Binet in standardizing the first IQ tests. Piaget's job was interviewing kids to help standardize IQ test questions, but Piaget wasn't very good at it, because he kept getting interested in all the kids making wrong answers. He listened to their answers, and rather than just marking wrong, he said, these answers are really kind of smart answers. If we had done this 100 years earlier, in fact, because of the state of scientific knowledge at that time, many of these kids would have been considered right, and the ones who we call right now would have been considered wrong. So it's not that their thinking is bad, it's just that it's out of touch with the way things are done right now. That caused them to be skeptical about IQ testing as superficial, and in fact, one of the contributions offered is the biography of intelligence, which is diametrically opposed to the one that stands behind IQ testing. He moved back to Geneva, where he was offered a 5-year appointment at the University of Geneva and told that he could do whatever he wanted. So he hung out at the kindergarten, at the nursery school, and taught the kids. He asked them questions such as what causes the mountains to rise randomly in Switzerland, mountains, and what causes water to run, what causes the weather, why does something sink and other things float. And he wrote a number of books about children's language, about the beliefs about nature, and about your moral judgment, asking questions like what is the worst sin children and that work became the foundation for later work in the chapter. Piaget, these early books were very widely read and highly regarded by everybody except paradoxically Piaget himself. One of his critics pointed out that Piaget was talking about what children say they think rather than the ideas that are embodied in their actions. And that caused Piaget to be critical of what he was doing, and he came to feel that that was right, rather than just what he was saying. And from then on, the rest of his career, he did exactly that. He looked at intelligence and ability in action, and he actually repudiated his next series of studies were case studies of his own 3 children. One book was called The Origin of Intelligence in Children, another book was called The Child's Construction of Reality, and these books are, in my opinion, psychology is most important, and they were the ones that laid the foundation for constructivism. Later on, he worked for about 20 years with 2 of his collaborators, Minska and Berta Inhauder, and with these 2 collaborators, he did a number of studies that are probably his most famous and space, time, probability, comes from those books of Piaget's. Then he went back to his original interest and wrote his introduction to genetic epistemology. Then he got a grant from the Ford Foundation that allowed him to start an international center for genetic epistemology. Let's look what brought together Piaget with many of the most eminent scientists in the world, as well as many young psychologists who did most of the actual research, gathered data, and the Center for Genetic Epistemology produced a book every year, and among other important developments, one of the members of the center, one of the psychologists who worked there, is me, so I have a personal interest in that. Piaget died at the age of 81, still having 3 or 4 books that he had written to be published posthumously. So that's something about Piaget, man. His idea of constructivism is that, as I said, knowledge is somehow built by the child. Piaget was interested in how do kids get their basic ideas that they use to interpret the world. How do they learn distinctions between before and after? Like you can't see before, you can see after, or big and small, but you can see things that are big. But if you don't have the idea of that distinction versus small, how do you get it? Piaget's idea that children have to make these ideas for themselves just as they have to make for themselves ideas such as ideas of prime number or multiplication or all these other ideas that are and constructivism is just here to make them. I want to go to the next slide. This is slide 8, which shows a baby, and helps illustrate Piaget's research on the development of object permanence. One of the ideas, one of the basic ideas that he has, is that the world is made out of things, out of objects, which continue to exist even when we're not around. And babies, research, don't have that. They're very little. And if you look at the first picture, you see a baby looking at a toy and playing with it and enjoying it. Then somebody puts up the screen and the kid looks away and he's not upset at all. He just doesn't seem to realize that it disappeared, and that's because he doesn't remember that it was there. In moments ago. Around the age of about 6 months, children start to get upset when you put them on the screen. Out of sight no longer means out of mind. They are aware that objects do exist in some sense when you can't perceive them. And then around about 12 months, they can imagine that objects move when you can't see them. Around 7 or 8 months, if you put a toy behind the screen, the kid will look at the point where you left it, where you brought the toy out of his visual field, where he last saw it. But he won't look any further. He won't imagine that you might have moved it when he wasn't looking. Around the age of 12 months, he'll look elsewhere if he doesn't see it first and disappear. So he has ideas of objects moving when they're not there. And around the age of 18 months, he has the idea of objects being all kinds of things. Fingers, running inside containers, and moving in complicated ways. So that he has very complicated ideas. Piaget was interested in the development of ideas later on in life as well. If you look at slide 9, you'll see one of his famous experiments. This is an experiment conservation substance. In this experiment, Piaget shows kids two tall thin cups, like the tall thin cup that you can see there with the yellow liquid in it, and he will take the yellow liquid for himself and the red liquid for the kid, and ask the kid, do you have more, do I have more, or do we both have just as much? And kids will say, typically, one of them has more, so we'll add a little, subtract a little, and eventually the kid says, yeah, now we both have just as much. Piaget says, great. And then he pours the liquid from one container, okay, he takes his own yellow liquid, he pours it from the tall, thin container that you see to the short fountain. And he says, now, do you have more, or do I have more, or do we both have just as much? And what a 4-year-old or 3-year-old, who a moment ago said they both have just as much, will now say, well, now I have a lot more than you. And Piaget says, well, you know. And the kid says, well, you can see, mine goes all the way up to here, and he points to the surface of his thin beaker, but yours only goes up to here, and he points to the surface of his short fountain. Yeah, I know, but there was a little girl who was here this morning. I did the same thing with her, and she said that we both have just as much now, because I can pour mine from that short fat glass into the tall thin one, and then you'll be able to see that we both have just as much. And here's your answer. Ask the kid, and was she right or was she wrong? And the child said, she was wrong. Well, you can see, mine comes all the way up to here, and yours only goes up to there. So you can argue as much as you like, and the knowledge is not going to transfer to you over the kid. Arguing won't work. The kid is absolutely firm in his commitment to his ideas, and nothing is going to change his mind. Then you come back to later, or to another kid, like the same thing. And so right now, two glasses, different sites, same pour it from the tall thing to the short fat one, and so now you have more, it's not, and kids everywhere around the same way will say, we both have just as much, how do you know? And the kid will say, well, yours is wider, but mine is higher, and so they're both the same. Being wider compensates for not being high. Well, they were both just as much before, and nobody's added anything but anything right, so you can see just as much. And Piaget will say, well, there was a little boy here this morning, and he said that he said that he had more because he went up to here and mine just goes up to here. Was he right or wrong? The 7-year-old is going to be the 3-year-old. No, he was absolutely wrong. You can see that I just as much as you because mine is higher than yours is lower. That's the only this idea is of conservation of substance and focusing on it conservation laws. This is exactly Piaget's done lots of things. There's like conservation of liquid, there's experiment with lighting, done the same thing. He did an experiment with scale, conservation area, conservation value, and then evaluation of that level. He did an experiment where he brought sugar into water. Where the sugar disappeared, the level realized that it was still there. that's how education works also. There are qualitative changes. Somehow, kids have to modify what they were thinking originally to develop what something that allows Are there any key ideas that I think are important for education? There's one that I want to emphasize. Him and the idea that mistakes are natural. Nothing shameful about being wrong. Among the worst mistakes that you can make in teaching, you can make as Piaget reported out, going on teaching you don't pretend that it's completely done. You always have to emphasize that when you make mistakes, of the young